Today, I want to take a look at how to create shader effects in your React project. Something like this, where we've got this sort of subtly animated background with a ripple effect on the cursor and some interaction where you can hover over elements and the actual shader changes. This used to take a really long time to do, but not anymore with the new Shaders component library. Shaders is available for React. It's also available, as you can see here, for Vue, Svelte, Solid, Vanilla.js, and other frameworks in the near future. And it's really, really easy to use. It makes shader effects as easy as dropping in components. So I don't want to just tell you how easy it is to use it. I want to show you. We're going to jump in. We've got the documentation open here so you can see all of the components. They are free to use. We're going to jump into a brand new empty React project and show you how to use it. So step one, the first step is very, very simple and straightforward, just npm i shaders. Doesn't matter if you're using React, Vue, Svelte, Solid, any of the frameworks, even Vanilla.js, you just always run npm i shaders to get started. So now I have shaders installed. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and empty out this template. Just leave it blank. We're going to end up, with a bunch of unused code. That's fine. Remove the state. Literally just get us to a basic empty application. Great. Now we're going to use our starting point, which is always going to be to add a shader tag. So I'm going to import shader from shaders/react. Inside of our template here, I'm just going to add if I can type correctly, shader tag. There you go, just like that. Give this a little refresh. Now you don't see anything right now. If I was to inspect, you can actually see the panel, but if I hover over this, you should be able to see, or maybe not. There is a canvas rendering right here, and that is your WebGPU canvas created by shaders. So anything that I put inside of this shader tag becomes a single WebGPU shader. Or if you don't have WebGPU in the browser, it falls back to WebGL v2. So let's just add something in. We've got a bunch of different components here. Some of the basic ones to start with are going to be textures. And one of the newer ones I've got here is called flowing gradient. So adding a flowing gradient like this into your shader effect is as simple as just literally adding the component. So we're going to add in flowing gradient. There it is. It's got that sort of warning that it's not being used yet. So we're going to use it. Flowing gradient. Just like that, save, and there you go. I can expand this a little bit, you can see it. So there's our WebGPU canvas rendering that flowing gradient. Now you could change a bunch of props, you could do whatever you want, or you could just use the component as is. Let's go ahead and add the ripple effect that you saw from that initial demo. So that component is called cursor ripples. If I come in here, I could add it below flowing gradient. So shaders works in the same way as the typical DOM order, right? So everything is top down. The background is flowing gradient, and then on top of that, we're adding cursor ripples by having it be below the flowing gradient component. And just like that, look at me moving the mouse, and I'm creating this sort of interactive ripple effect on top of our existing textured background. This works no matter how many layers you have or what you're rendering in the background. So let me add just a grid component here. So a grid is going to be above the flowing gradient, but below the cursor ripples. And there you go. You've got this grid rendering. You've got these ripples. It's all working really, really nicely. Now, we do have a lot more functionality than just, adding basic components like this. If you take a look at our guides, we have information on how to do blending, how to do masking. We have animation controls, we have props and reactivity. Let's actually take a look at using props. We can do that really quickly in our demo here with the cursor ripples effect. So notice it's just, standard looking ripples. We have many different props on the cursor ripples object. One of them is called radius. That determines just sort of how big the area that we're affecting is. Now, by definition, it's 0.5. It's our standard sort of radius. I'm going to bump that to 2 and just save this. And now you'll see we've got a very, very different effect, very wobbly. We've got something very interesting going on with the edges here because we're pulling in that white grid. But we've created an entirely different effect with props. This value for cursor ripples is just a number. It's just the value 2. But it could be state, right? We had used state here before in the initial sort of React placeholder. We could have just tied in the counter value, and every time we increment it, we increment the value of the radius of our cursor ripples effect. So we can do a lot with props. There's a ton of props. If I come in here to the component docs, click on any one of these, and you'll come down to here into the props table. You can see all of the available options. And again, we can do more and make it more than the sum of its parts with blending, with masking. We have dynamic props built into the shader system. So here's an example of it just automatically animating a circle size using a ping pong animation. We can drive elements based on mouse position, based on, we could use the actual mouse position to drive something other than a position element, like the radius of the circle. And we can use mapping effects, which is a more complex topic for another time. But there's tons and tons of different ways that you can use shaders. So you could do this. You could use the components. You can use the entire library. It's completely free to use. Just go ahead and grab it from npm and use the component documentation at shaders.com. You can also find, as a pro member, right now about 450 plus presets. There's more and more releasing all the time. And these presets are designed to be sort of these art-directed, ready-to-go collections of cool looks, of interesting things that you can do. So, for example, here's one that looks like stainless steel, right? Excuse me. Here's one that as I move over the metal, it creates this color effect. Here's one that looks surprisingly similar to Netlify. Let's hope we don't get sued by creating an effect that looks just like this design system. And so you could literally grab any of these and use them in your project. So let's grab that Netlify example. Where is that? It's here. It's Pixel Beams 2. When you're a pro member, you can export the code from any of these pro presets. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab the React code for this. Now I could just do this as a component, but I'm just going to copy and paste. I need to probably fix that spacing. But there you go. Let's just grab our component imports. And okay, yeah, so the spacing's ugly, but you get the point. There we go. We've got a shader running from a preset in seconds, and I could do anything I want. This shader component acts just like a canvas tag. So it has this intrinsic size, but you can set whatever you want on it. For example, I could come in here. I don't even know if I actually have Tailwind installed. I'm assuming I do. Rotate 90? Maybe not. Or maybe I'm messing up that syntax name. Okay, well, you get the point. You can add class names. You could, if you're in, something other than React, you can use class. If you can use styles, if you want inline styles, you've got full control over it as if you were controlling just a canvas element, which means you can position it behind content. You can make it full width. You can make it sticky. Do whatever you want with it, and it's only ever going to render one canvas layer per shader tag. But there's an even better way to work with this, which I haven't even gotten to yet, and that is using the design editor. It was actually one of the very first features, but it's sort of one of the most powerful features. So let's take a look at this stainless steel example. We will grab just this one, and you can see here we have an option, again, it's a pro option to open in editor, and that's going to open up the shaders design editor. With this editor, we can do a bunch, right? We can do all the stuff that you just saw. So if I wanted to add in a flowing gradient and I wanted to add in a cursor ripples, yeah, we said cursor ripples, we set the radius super high. What else did we have? We had a grid, right? We could add that grid component in, drop it in between those two layers. And you can see we've created what we did in code in seconds inside of the design editor. And we could take this and just export that back to React. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play with maybe this example here. I'm going to take a look at our glass component. So glass is one of a handful of shape effects available inside of shaders that can take any one of these sort of analytical mathematical shapes, like a star, for example, and it can make it into an interesting looking sort of metallic glass effect in this case. Or it can take a custom SVG. So you could drop in, let's say, the V0 logo, and just like that, we have V0 in front of a background. And let's add something more interesting. Maybe I'm going to add a blob. We'll add blob in the background here. Maybe we set that more to the bottom, and we'll just randomize the color until we like, yeah, something like that. Give it more softness, increase the size, a little bit more deformation. And there you go. We've created something inside of the design editor that would have taken a little bit longer to do just manually fussing with component code. I can export this directly to our example. Here we have our design editor design showing the V0 logo in front of this nice blue background. And it took us seconds to make this and to copy the code over. And it's in our code base now, right? Like I can close that. I don't need that. It's not an iframe. It's not an embed. It's in our code. It's components. We can mess with it. Excuse me. Like we could say, I want one of the colors of this blob in the background to be red. And I just did that in component code. And I can save this and I can commit it to the repo. There's tons and tons you can do with just props. Because these props can be state, they can be animated, right? I could animate the size of that blob over time. I could attach it to scroll position, to mouse position, to anything. And so that is, in a nutshell, how you use shaders inside of React. For more information, if you just want to use the component library, like I said, that is free. Just hit up shaders.com. We'll just hit up shaders.com. There you go. We have, like I mentioned, the full documentation, the full component reference, so you can go in and see everything. But more importantly, you've got these presets. As a pro user, you get access to a massive collection of available presets, different looks and styles for different use cases, and of course, the design editor, which makes editing inside of shaders effortless, very, very easy to do. So for more information, check out shaders.com. We have a Discord channel. Jump into that if you need any help, and I will see you around.